loading for me.
Howdy, people. Welcome to another episode where we're going to talk about crypto, talk about the blockchain, and of course, as usual, when I'm talking about these subjects, I'm talking about it with Daniel Bostic. And we're both that's Daniel. We're both giving up a little bit of our Saturday night. Tomorrow I fly to DC. I'm in DC for like 5 or 6 days doing some conference stuff and stuff like that. And I'm sure you have a busy week ahead too, Daniel.
I do, yeah. Meeting with clients all week. Got a couple clients opening new businesses, and that is a great sign for things. It gets me really pumped. I'm kind of a nerd, but I love seeing people open new businesses. So, especially in Charleston. So, yeah, it's going to be a full week, but it's going to be good.
The economy is good. So, you guys, as always, these blockchain and crypto periscopes and live streams that then get uploaded to YouTube, and our Chaincast, which you can find on iTunes, the Apple Store. It's our podcast, which is totally different than this show, is brought to you by a cryptocurrency, a token, really, called Crown. You can find Crown by going to crown.tech. You can also sign up for our email list at crownblockchain.com. There's the logo there in the bottom corner, way over there underneath Daniel. And so with that, we wanted to give you an update about Crown, but today's going to be a very 30,000 and 50,000 foot talk about decentralized governance. So this applies a lot to my audience, which is largely political activists, people who care about social welfare all around the world. But it also matters with business, verification, the finance sector, a lot of other stuff that we'll get into. And so we're going to have a giant conversation about this stuff. But first, a message from our sponsor. What's going on with Crown lately, Daniel?
Yeah, so we have really exciting news. So basically, BitZ is, I believe, a top 5 exchange. It's a fairly large exchange and super user-friendly. They have great things going on over there. And they have basically agreed to list Crown. So we've gone through the code review. As part of joining these exchanges, you have to have their teams audit your code to make sure there's nothing weird going on, no concerns they have for compatibility, and then basically they approve you. And what BitZ does is a little bit different. So making it through the approval process is really probably the biggest step. A lot of tokens that are illegitimate get rejected through the approval process. So Crown's been approved, and the next step for that is they're going to have a competition to vote. So basically, some of these exchanges have decided that voting would really be a good way to sort out what tokens have community demand. And it's a good way to weed out a lot of those spam accounts than, if they just had people retweeting them on Twitter. So what they do is they have these competitions, and you actually will vote with BitZ's token. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the coming weeks. Crown is actually rolling out some really big incentives for people to vote with the BitZ token. So you will be able to actually receive Crown possibly for voting. They're doing an airdrop. So that's a really big step for us to get in one of those large exchanges. So I'm really excited about it.
That is very exciting. And, one thing that attracted, I promise, if you're one of those people who say, Ali, I don't hold any crypto, Ali, I'm 80 years old, we're going to talk about this stuff in a very easy to understand way. I like Naval on Twitter once said something that really stuck with me. He said, the mark of a genius is somebody who can talk about complex things and put them into simple terms. And the sign of a con artist is usually somebody who takes a simple thing and makes it very complex. And I think that that's a good measure for those of us who consider ourselves intellectuals, is sometimes we write up because we want the admiration of our peers instead of empowering the masses, which if you're delivering truth, if you're delivering facts, if you're delivering science, if you're delivering illumination to the masses, it should be to empower people. The point of truth should be to for all of us to get closer. It's like a stack, you know. You want to build on what is and not what is not. And so I'm going to dedicate this scope to talking about this in a very, let's just call it a very dumb way, but it's not a dumb way at all. And I want to tell you how the blockchain works. So first off, what you need to understand is that this type of technology, this concept of technology has been around. Peer-to-peer technology. We all remember Napster, Kazaa, etc., etc. What this is if I upload a file, it shares either copies of my whole files or parts of this files on all kinds of computers around the world. And then when Daniel says, I want to download that file, well, he goes into the directory, and the directory says, okay, I need part of the file here, part of the file here, part of the file there, and then I'll match it all up in the zeros and ones until Daniel has a full copy, a legitimate copy of the file. Or it says, okay, well, here's the closest copy. Let me grab it here. Oh, this was interrupted 40% in. Let me now go to a browser and finish this. And so that peer-to-peer technology has always existed. What people didn't think we could do is we didn't know if we could do that with currency. And up pops, you know, in 2009, up pops the blockchain, and the first implementation of the blockchain was called Bitcoin. And so what this says is okay, if we're freezing, I apologize. But you guys let me know in the comments how bad we are. What it says is that if I want to give money to Daniel, well, I don't have possession of it, but we have wallet addresses. And I can say, well, this wallet address now needs to have 4 instead of 10. And Daniel's instead of 6 is now going to have 12. That 6-point difference. And so in transit, what it says is, okay, this has to be confirmed by all kinds of computers before both wallets sync up. And then that's what happens. So that's the blockchain technology, essentially, and it solves what is called the Byzantine generals problem. Now, one must think, now that we understand, okay, well, I get it now, Bitcoin and the blockchain are basically peer-to-peer. It's a file sharing system, except for it's a lot more trustworthy because it's all the same directory. And you then have to think, well, how does that apply to governments? How does that apply to loans, to credit, to debt? How does that apply to wills, land deeds? How does that apply to anything that requires one record be synced up and recognized by all parties? This could totally change the title system. Right now, the title system, if you buy a house, you have to pay for title as well. And what happens, and Daniel does real estate and his dad's a lawyer, so he can correct me where I'm wrong. But what happens essentially is it requires every time a home sells that a lawyer or somebody who does titles goes back and checks 30 years worth of records or whatever the state's requirements worth of records to prove that the ownership of that house went through the proper channels every time. And that's sort of a verification. Blockchain, think about how blockchain technology could disrupt that, in that you could literally look at a record and it's been verified, and it's always been verified, and every second it's verified, and all the computers are saying the same thing. And that if one computer tries to maliciously start fudging data, the other computers cut it out of the system automatically. I mean, that's beautiful. That's what's so beautiful about these original 18 lines of code. 18 lines of code. You're watching something that has tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands lines of code right now with Periscope, with Apple, the OS for your phone. Bitcoin, the Bitcoin blockchain is 18 lines of code originally. Very, very powerful stuff. And so now what some communities are thinking is, okay, well, if we can govern, if money is power, but we don't totally believe in anarchy and we don't totally want, whatever, how do we govern code updates? How do we govern budgets? What if someone needs to travel somewhere and we need to pull together resources, but we don't want to do it in a way that's about just charity. We want to govern it. We want to tax ourselves, if you will. We want to raise capital. levy taxes as it was originally done. Remember, there weren't always income taxes. The king and his tax collector didn't walk around and say, we need a portion of your income. It was like, we're about to go to war, everybody chip in. The king wants a new bridge, everyone chip in. The king, in his magnificent judgment, has determined this bridge will help the economy. And so everything was a hierarchy. This is why we have kings and nobles, because they knew the affairs of the state. They were not only trained at this from a very young age, but they also knew what was going on. So they were our centralized computers. And this is why our government looks the way it does now, even though it's a representative form of democracy. But now, this is the first time ever where we're considering, well, if the people have the time to be aware, which prosperity and luxury provide, which might not all be the case, then we could all participate in voting in where we want our tax money to go, if we all want to be levy taxes. So Daniel, so Crown Community has a budget. Tell us how we get the budget, and then tell them about the proposal platform and like how Crown is implementing, because there's other coins that do this too. And we're going to keep talking about the political implications of this. Think about, just lastly before Daniel gets to that, think about what's happening in Venezuela. Think about the people being able to say, one Ali dollar means one Ali dollar, which buys you a liter of milk. And all the people deciding they're going to exchange value on that unit. And then just cutting out the government. It's very exciting, the implications going forward, when people decide to first recognize value with each other, realizing that the computers require a trustless system. You don't have to have faith, you have math. So, Daniel, how does the Crown community implement decentralized governance?
So, essentially, when transactions are swapped on the network, just like they would be with Bitcoin or any of these other projects, a certain percentage of the transaction fee there's actually an algorithm, and the code is on there with actual numbers, but essentially part of the transaction fee goes into a fund called the proposal fund.
All right, so time out.
Network.
So time out. So if I send Daniel money, if X sends Y money, it requires that you pay a fee because the servers have to keep running, and the servers have to have a market incentive for confirming that transaction. So the first computer, second computer, third computer, fourth computer. Stream us back in and see if it catches. Okay. Do you want to turn on your camera?
It is on.
Oh yeah. Okay, we're back. All right, hold on, folks. Hold on. Wow, I can't believe that actually worked.
Are we on the same feed?
Yep. It's back live.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Okay, we're back. All right. So, but why can't I bring Daniel in?
You can hear me, but you can't see me.
Gay.
Rude.
All right, where is this? I can't get. All right, everybody, hold on just a second. There. All right, there we go. Wow. GM Chrysler. Okay, folks. I apologize. I'm so glad we didn't have to delete that. I tried, but try I must. All right, hold on. Let me click retweet. Everyone else click retweet. Let's bring on our people. We lost half the audience. I can't believe half of you guys stuck around, though. It says something about you guys and how excited you are to talk about decentralized governance. All right, Daniel. So break it down to them. So we talked about what happens is the producers are being taxed, if you could even call it that. But the money's not coming out of their pockets. It's just being the consumer pays a fee. The fee splits between majority to the producers, and then some of it to the government. But everyone gets a say in that government, right?
Right, exactly. So that money forms a pool essentially, and that fund is called the proposal fund. And the proposal fund is used to fund people who are working for the Crown project, are promoting the project, or maybe to provide funds for some type of service that the network would need. So at the end of the day, what happens is individuals like you and I, will submit a proposal to the network. It's done through the wallet. And that proposal is then voted on by currently only masternode holders. So if you hold a masternode, you get one vote. And then the more masternodes you hold, the more votes you get. And so then those masternodes vote and they determine the direction of that particular proposal, if it'll be approved, if it'll be denied. They can vote yes, no, or they can abstain from a vote. And that's how the network really decides. And that's how the network determines what direction they're heading and what people are working for the project, etc.
And this is really cool because when you think about it, I mean, everybody around the world knows that our governments do some things because they have favors that they owe each other. And that's not representing us. Or we know they do some things for consideration for what interest they're going to represent once they're out of government. Or another common thing is they're all just in it together and they know if they all, bipartisanly vote for it, or multi-partisans in countries where it's more than a two-party system, the people can't vote everyone out. And what this offers is people a way to govern themselves or choose ways in which informed people can govern them, but still a little bit more decentralized, and it's immediate. And I think this is exciting. I mean, when you think about the implications of moving resources in terms of droughts or famine or all kinds of aid that countries want to give other countries, this could be moved pretty fast. If one country suffering a disaster is recovering and it's closer to a point that suffers another disaster, well, if the UN will give me UN tokens, knowing that I'm guaranteed to still replenish these resources that I have left over, but I can give it to another one, you can save lives. If, for example, we wanted to innovate polling, and we wanted to do really accurate samples, we got verified identities knowing that no one was going to lie so long as it's opt-in to a pollster, because the token could carry part of their identity to the pollster. It can mask their true identity. It could do all kinds of things. And so the idea that we can live in a more accurate world is very exciting to me, because I actually think most of the trouble that we have in America right now is because we don't have a shared reality. And I do blame one side more than the other, but it's very clear that we don't the left and the right don't not only have the same worldview, they don't have the same facts. We can all see the same thing on the same television, and we would come to two different conclusions. And that's really scary. We would see two different things. And so, I think there is kind of a problem that I think that, I'm a part of this problem where sometimes enthusiasts want to blockchain everything. And I don't think everything does need to be blockchain. I had said that early in my little blockchain career. Blockchain everything. And it was more equipped, but it's true. It's like we only need to blockchain those things that need to be immutable, those things that, if they become trustless, become more trustworthy, that we don't want to be censored or confiscated. Those are the things that need to be put on the blockchain. But that's still a lot of our world. Deeds, marriage certificates, divorce certificates, money, and potentially votes for war, the idea that we the people, could have a blockchain when we need to implement constitutional amendment voting, that could really empower a lot of people, and it could be more accurate. And it's just very exciting that there is a system, that there is a technology that will allow people to govern themselves without becoming the mob. And I'm just going to say that I'm not a democratic absolutist. I do not believe that democracy is a right. I don't believe that democracy is good. I think that democracy leads to a lot of bad decisions, generally speaking. But the idea that smaller communities can live by democracy, awesome. The idea that a representative form of government can take place, awesome. Or where it's meritocracy, whereas in Crown they have master nodes and system nodes, so people who are keeping the network up get to vote on how that community money is spent that they didn't get from the transaction. Very, very exciting. I don't know what's most exciting for you. I mean, you like
I
politics. You
think
like
I'm really honestly excited about the transparency side of it. So you were talking earlier about taxes, and one of the biggest complaints, obviously, that people, myself included, have with taxes is you pay these taxes, and some of it you know where it goes, and a lot of it you have no clue where it goes.
yeah.
And in this type of system, because when they submit the proposal, their document has the wallet address, you at least know that those funds are going to that specific proposal. So it's not like anyone on the development team or any users or masternode holders can kind of dip out of that pot and say, well, we think we need money for this project. It's all open, it's all transparent, and it's all on the ledger. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that is really beautiful, and you're right. I mean, transparency kind also builds that trust. It's not just the verification of lots of yeah, Cardi B. Someone in the chat room is saying Cardi B. That was so funny. Did everyone watch that viral video? Did you see that video?
I didn't. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, it is so good. Cardi B is like, what are y'all doing with my effing tax money? What are y'all doing with my effing tax money? And it's really good because she got taxed 40%. And she probably got taxed higher than that, but she at least is seeing that she's getting taxed 40%. And you have to imagine that, especially as an artist, as a creative, you finally are proving that you're worth your salt. It's verified. The people love you. And the government wants half of that verification. Mm-hmm. That's a very, rape feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of businesses feel that way too, not just artists.
Yeah.
Anyone creating anything feels that way.
Yeah, that's tough.